Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Steve Leibowitz, and coming up in today's newscast. Day 81 of the war against Hamas, and Prime Minister Netanyahu was in the Gaza Strip with a clear message. The International Red Cross refuses to deliver medicine to the hostages held in Gaza by Hamas. Has the organization failed its given mandate, and what can be done? And Iran threatens retaliation after a senior member of the Revolutionary Guard is eliminated in Damascus. Day 81 of the war against Hamas in Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu entered Gaza for the second time since the start of the war. His message was clear. Israel will continue the war until Hamas is defeated. Prime Minister Netanyahu entered Gaza for the second time since the start of the 81-day war and received a briefing on terrorist infrastructure in the heart of civilian areas of the terrorist enclave. IDF commanders in the field briefed the Prime Minister on the progress of the war against Hamas, as well as the large amount of munitions and tunnels that the army is recovering across the territory.
אני שומע כאן דבר אחד, כל הזמן. להמשיך עד הסוף. עד הסוף. אני רוצה להגיד לכם דבר אחד. קודם כל, אנחנו גאים בכם. באמת גאים. הלב יוצא. משאירים משפחות תומכות, מקריבים, חברים נופלים. המסירות שלכם היא מדהימה, והנחישות שלכם היא מדהימה. והעם כולו מאחוריכם. דבר אחד חשוב לי להדגיש בפניכם, אני שואל את זה וגם דורש את זה, וגם מקבל את זה. זה לעשות הכל כדי לשמור על החיים שלכם. יש משימה, המשימה דוהרים קדימה אליה, אבל צריך תוך כדי זה לעשות הכל כדי לשמור על החיים שלכם. זה אחד. דבר שני, אם מישהו אומר לכם, ואומרים כל הזמן, יישמע בחוץ, אנחנו הולכים להפסיק את המלחמה, המלחמה נגמרה, המלחמה לא נגמרה, היא תיגמר בניצחון מוחלט. לא פחות. The IDF commanders said they were determined to win. לא מפסיקים. כל מי שמדבר על להפסיק, אין. לא מפסיקים. מלחמה נמשכת עד הסוף.
עד הסוף.
עד שגומרים אותם. לא פחות מזה. ואני יודע שעזבתם משפחות ושהמשפחות תומכות. זה דבר אדיר. זה הכוח, זה המפתח לניצחון.
גם השארנו פה שני חברים שלנו.
אני יודע. לא מעט. וחברים יקרים. בשביל זה אנחנו ממשיכים. הצבא היא להמשיך.
תודה רבה.
תודה לך. תודה. תודה לך. תודה לך. איפה המפקד? מח"ט. תודה לך. תודה. חשוב מאוד ומאוד חזק מאוד.
וחשוב שידעו שאנחנו, בכל מקום שתגיד לנו, ננצח. לא ליד, לא בערך.
עד הסוף.
עד הסוף. ננצח.
Meanwhile, the IDF released videos of a vehicle belonging to one of the hostages taken by Hamas during the October 7th attack.
שאתם יכולים לראות, בתוך הסככה הזאת יש רכב טויוטה קורולה ששייך שנחטף מישראל, ובתוך הרכב הזה יש מלא ממצאים, יש כתמי דם שאספו, ניתן לראות אותם בכל מיני מקומות, וכמובן ממצאים נוספים. בצד השני נמצא גם רכב טויוטה של מחבלים שיש בו וסטים וציוד לחימה.
They deny the kidnapping of our children, the murder of our grandchildren, the rape of our daughters. The new Nazis we face today will stop at nothing to destroy civilization as we know it. The World Jewish Congress was created exactly for these times like this, so every Jew can fall asleep at night knowing they are safe in their own home. We are a voice for the Jewish people everywhere. We are the World Jewish Congress.
And joining us now with the latest on the Gaza war is Likud Knesset member, Deputy Chair of the Knesset, MK Milwidsky. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a week of intense fighting in the Gaza Strip. The Prime Minister was in Gaza, sending a clear message. Israel will continue this war until Hamas is defeated. It's been 81 days with mounting losses. How close are we to any kind of a victory?
Well, a victory is not going to be achieved in days or in weeks. It's going to be a long process. But there's absolutely no alternative. In order to get to the underground tunnels, in order to completely eliminate Hamas abilities to rule the Gaza Strip, we need to take time and combine efforts and make sure that this time we make the job, we finish the job, get the job done. And in order to do that, it's going to take few more months, and I imagine that the entire Gaza Strip process, until we can completely declare that Hamas is no longer in Gaza, it probably is going to be over a year.
Over a year. You recently made headlines in the Israeli media by calling out another Likud member, Economy Minister Nir Barkat, for his comments on how the war was being handled. I believe that Barkat said something to the effect that soldiers were being endangered because Israel was taking care to avoid excessive Palestinian casualties. Why should he not speak out if that's what he believes to be the case? And why are we tying the hands of the army to win this thing?
That's the issue. We're not tying the hands of the army. And what he said, to my knowledge, as a member of the Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee, was completely false. Now, he's a minister. He's a very high-ranked minister in the government. If he has any basis to whatever he is saying, I would expect him to come out and explain to the public why he is saying what he is saying. And if he so feels, and if he thinks that he cannot influence the government to act differently, he should resign. If I was a minister in a government that would endanger our soldiers in order to, meet international pressure or, take into consideration other things than clear operational matters, I wouldn't have stayed in such a government for 1 minute. He's a minister, and when he says something like that, when there are hundreds of thousands of reserve soldiers out there right now, when hundreds of thousands of families in Israel are worried sick to what will happen with their loved ones, when every day we receive the news of new casualties, soldiers that were killed in order for us to continue to live here, to say such things without any nothing to support your very harsh accusations is something that
I just want to move on.
Should have been done.
Before we run out of time, I want to ask you about a potential hostage deal. Egypt is trying to mediate. Hamas is saying no because part of the deal would see Hamas replaced in Gaza. Can you see any deal coming about in the coming days without a ceasefire?
I think that just like the last deal, a deal will only be possible when Hamas leaders fear for their own personal lives, and when they understand that they will either be killed or make a deal. We're not in that situation yet. They only understand force. They only understand power. They only understand death. We have to bring force. We have to bring death to their doorstep, and then they will be willing to talk. Not a second earlier.
Before we finish, I just wanted to ask you quickly about the North. I mean, these people have been out of their homes for almost 80 days. Homes are being destroyed. Entire communities like Kibbutz Manara are being damaged. When are we going to say enough is enough to Hezbollah and we're just going to move them out of South Lebanon?
Well, they're going to move from where they are now. It will be done either through diplomatic means or through military operation. Now, it would be unwise for me to say here, in the media what exactly and when we're planning to do. But if the diplomatic efforts fail, then we will have to resume to military force.
We're going to have to end it there. I do want to wish you a better 2024 than we had in 2023. Thanks for being with us.
To all of us.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
The Israel Defense Forces has announced the deaths of 3 more soldiers killed in battle in the Gaza Strip. The fallen heroes are identified as Staff Sergeant Reserve Elisha Yehonatan Lober, 24, of the 179th Reserve Armored Brigade from Yitzhar. Lober survived by his child and his pregnant wife. The second soldier identified as Sergeant First Class Reserve Joseph Gittarts, 25, of the 179th Reserve Armored Brigade from Tel Aviv. And the third soldier is named as Staff Sergeant Daniel Nachman from Kfar Saba, who served in the 71st Barak Battalion. He succumbed to his wounds sustained last week while fighting in Gaza. Fallen heroes all, may their memories be blessed. Iran is threatening revenge after the assassination of a senior member of the Revolutionary Guard in Damascus, responsible for coordinating the military ties between Iran and Syria. This, as Defense Minister Gallant is saying that Hezbollah is being pushed back from the border. Iranian Revolutionary Guard Brigadier General Raisi Mousavi was responsible for coordinating the military alliance between Iran and Syria and the arming of Hezbollah in Lebanon. His efforts have been ended by a missile strike attributed to Israel. According to the official Iranian media, Mousavi was killed by an airstrike in his home in a Damascus suburb moments after arriving from his office. Mousavi has lived in Syria for 30 years and had his own office inside the Syrian Defense Ministry. Iranian President Raisi vowed that Israel will pay for the attack. Israel has yet to comment. The IDF has carried out hundreds of strikes inside government-controlled parts of war-torn Syria in recent years, often targeting Hezbollah and other terror groups backed by Iran, but it rarely acknowledges or discusses the operations. Meanwhile, Hezbollah again fired missiles and rockets at northern Israel. Several IDF positions along the Lebanon border were targeted, as well as civilian homes in Misgav Am. There were no reports of injuries in the attacks. Amid the continuing tit-for-tat attacks, Defense Minister Gallant visited the IDF's northern command and said that Hezbollah was being pushed far away from the border with Israel and that the IDF will strengthen all of these efforts. At least 123 Hezbollah terrorists have been killed by IDF precision strikes along the Lebanese border during the 2 months of cross-border warfare. The defense minister said that the IDF is damaging a significant amount of Hezbollah infrastructure near the border, forcing the terrorists to move north, away from the border as an operational matter to avoid being disconnected from weapons and supply lines. In addition, Gallant said that IDF air power has greater operational freedom within Lebanon than ever before. Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar has reportedly rejected the Egypt-mediated ceasefire proposal. Meanwhile, the Knesset held a special session about the 129 Israeli hostages still being held in Gaza, and many family members were in attendance. More from ILTV's Debo Klein.
A report in the Qatari-owned Al Jazeera site reported Sinwar had rejected the Egyptian proposal for another hostage deal between Israel and Hamas. The report was later deleted from the Al Jazeera site. According to the report, Sinwar rejected Israeli conditions, which would include the establishment of an expert-led government in Gaza to replace Hamas. The Egyptian proposal includes a lengthy pause in fighting in exchange for some 40 Israeli hostages held in Gaza since the Hamas rampage on October 7th. It also suggests an end to the war and an Israeli withdrawal from Gaza after all the hostages are released and Hamas is replaced. Meanwhile, the Knesset has held a special session on the hostages, with many of the family members in attendance and making their presence felt. Prime Minister Netanyahu said that Israel would not succeed in freeing the remaining hostages held in Gaza without applying military pressure.
לכם, לוחמי צה"ל, ולכם המשפחות הדואבות וקרובי החטופים, אני אומר גם מעל הבמה הזאת, אנחנו לא עוצרים ולא נעצור עד לניצחון, כי אין לנו ארץ אחרת ואין לנו דרך אחרת. אני רוצה להגיד לכם, חברי הכנסת ומשפחות יקרות, לא היינו מצליחים לשחרר עד כה למעלה מ100 מן החטופים בלי הלחץ הצבאי. כל הלחצים שאנחנו מפעילים, המדיניים, המודיעיניים, מאמצים רבים אחרים, לא היו צולחים בלי הלחץ הצבאי. ואנחנו לא נצליח לשחרר את כל החטופים בלי לחץ צבאי. לחץ צבאי, לחץ מבצעי, לחץ מדיני. ולכן דבר אחד לא נעשה. לא נפסיק להילחם.
And Prime Minister Netanyahu has revealed that the International Red Cross refused to give medicine to the hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. The Prime Minister said, "I handed them a box. The representative said no." This is just the latest report on how the Red Cross has refused, in opposition to its mandate and its mission, to help the hostages. And joining us now to discuss is CEO of International Legal Forum, Arsen Ostrovsky, who has been at the forefront of the global campaign calling out the Red Cross and demanding that they live up to their mission and do more to help Israeli hostages. First of all, the latest story told from the Prime Minister himself, it sounds simply outrageous, and it isn't the first time we've heard this, and also heard similar stories from the families of the hostages. How can it be?
Absolutely outrageous. You know, this is just the latest dark stain on the history of the Red Cross, which goes back all the way to the Holocaust, when the organization quite literally abandoned the Jewish people, and they're doing so again. They're abandoning the Jewish people, they're abandoning the Israeli hostages. Their primary mission, their sacrosanct mission, is to help hostages and provide humanitarian relief to those in need. And since October 7th, the Red Cross has not seen a single hostage. They have not provided a single proof of life. They have not delivered any medicine whatsoever. The Red Cross prides itself on being unwaveringly neutral, but yet when it comes to Israeli lives, the Red Cross is simply unwaveringly absent.
It's just maddening. The Red Cross has a mandate. Its mandate, as stated on its website, is that it's an independent, neutral organization ensuring humanitarian protection and assistance for victims of armed conflicts and other situations of violence. But when it comes to Israel, why are they failing to fulfill the mandate?
Absolutely. You know, the Red Cross, they have condemned the taking the hostages, and they have called for their release. But with all due respect, simply politely, you know, calling for their release is not enough. The fact that they're dealing with a ruthless terrorist jihadist enemy is not enough. It does not absolve them of their responsibility. And in the latest, one most outrageous statements, the president of the Red Cross suggested that their role might be made a little bit easier, perhaps if Israel were to meet the demands of Hamas. Now, that in itself is something just outrageous. They want us to meet the demands of the very terrorist group that kidnapped, that took hostage children, women, elderly, that raped, murdered, massacred, and burnt innocent civilians. Quite frankly, the Red Cross has lost all pretext of neutrality here.
Are there grounds for action here? Should people and nations stop sending donations to the International Red Cross? Really? What can be done here?
Look, the fact that the Red Cross is not fulfilling its mandate, and quite frankly, I think that they are refusing to fulfill their mandate, even by refusing to deliver medicine that the families of the hostages have pleaded with them to take. They've refused that. as well. There is no dispute about that whatsoever. In terms of what actions can be done, there are a number of options. Now, the Red Cross as an international organization does have a level of immunity, so it does make it more difficult to take legal action against them in courts. However, they are not immune from public pressure, for sure. Take the steps, for example, that Congress can take. The US is the single largest state donor to the Red Cross in the last year, giving some $700 million. Congress, and by the way, not just the US Congress, but parliaments all over the world ought to be asking questions of the Red Cross. They need to be asking, where is that money going? Why has the Red Cross not seen a single hostage? Why has the Red Cross not fulfilled their mandate, their duty? And where was the Red Cross this entire time that Hamas was building terror tunnels and operations in the hospitals and in the tunnels under the hospitals, right under the very nose of the Red Cross? Where have they been all this time?
It's really shameful. Many questions. Arsen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And while Israel has begun its war against Hamas immediately following the October 7th massacre, various memorials commemorating the lives lost on October 7th have been held across the country. Expo Tel Aviv installed the Nova 629 exhibit as one of the first memorials to the massacre at the Supernova, where the 360 partygoers were murdered and dozens more abducted. ILTV's Ariella Lachiani headed to the Expo Tel Aviv to see the exhibition. Let's take a look.
I'm here at the Expo in Tel Aviv where the 629 Nova exhibition has been installed. This exhibit is one of the first memorials to the events of October 7th and the Nova Party. Come with me inside and let's take a look at the exhibition. As you can see behind me, a row of toilets where partygoers desperately hid for their lives as Hamas terrorists shot at them. As you can see behind me, a collection of burned cars, which work as a testament to the hundreds of people who attempted to flee the scene in their cars, but were mowed down by Hamas terrorists. It's really easy to disconnect and to feel so detached from what happened. But when you stand here now at a bar, it makes you think, how many times have you stood at a bar at a party with your friends? It makes you realize it could have been me, it could have been you. Can you tell me why it was important for you to come here today?
Actually, we went to the hostage square to bring some friends from America because we live here in Renana, and my wife's like, listen, I saw this thing, on the news, Tel Aviv Expo, we should come and see it. It's a whole memoriam to the Nova Festival. So we hopped right after the hostage center to come here, and I couldn't believe how impactful it was. I've been to a lot of Holocaust memorial museums, and this obviously hit home even more than that. It's so recent to see the shoes, the knapsacks, the cars that were burnt, the porta potties. I mean, they really made you feel what exactly happened that day. And seeing the 629 here, knowing that they were having their, freestyle life and enjoying, and then all of a sudden everything changed. And most people don't know this, that, that day over 350 or 360 people were killed in Nova, and so many injured. People don't even realize that. So this really brought to life. You felt it. It was very somber, serious. The music in the background that really brought it to life. And it's so sad to see the notes, the portraits that people drew of loved ones that they lost. It was extremely impactful. It wasn't one of those things you could just rush through. And may their memory be blessed, and may, as they say, may they dance again,
Behind me now are piles of clothes, bags, hats, sunglasses, shoes that were worn to the Nova Festival. And the hard truth is, we have seen this in history before. We have seen the belongings of people who were murdered simply for being Jewish. So the question is now, when is never again?
Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg, editor of All Israel News. Sign up for our free daily email for the latest news from Jerusalem. Go to allisrael.com.
And let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected tonight throughout the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 14 degrees Celsius or 57 degrees Fahrenheit. And then tomorrow, mostly clear skies and rising temperatures set to reach highs of 21 degrees Celsius or 71 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channels, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our new and improved website, ILTV.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Steve Leibowitz. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.